Alright, so in this video, I'm going to give you my initial impression on Legends suspension for Dyna. So what's going on, YouTube? BK Low is back in the building. Yeah, so we did it. We finally got some Legend suspension thrown on the old lowrider. Oh man, let's just take a second and enjoy this bridge. I showed this in my Lowside video, right? But oh man, it never gets old. Come to New York, come enjoy our bridges. Alright, so before I start my video here, I do have to give two major shout outs of people who had made, of two companies that had made this all possible. And the first major shout out goes to Get Lowered. They have been supporting my channel for a little bit now, supporting me with supporting me with getting the products on my bike, allowing me to ride the way I want to ride. And I'm really excited to keep working with them, doing reviews and stuff. So also, shout out to Legend Suspension, because they were also, down to support me in that regard. So, yeah. And if you don't know Get Lowered is like your one-stop shop for anything motorcycle related. They have the best helmets, they definitely probably have this helmet, Simpson Revolt. They have anything you might need that's motorcycle related, and pretty much anything that you see on my bike you could get from Get Lowered for a very good price. Their customer service is always on point. I feel like every time I'm on Instagram, I look at their account and that little green dot is there, meaning someone's available. So like, hit them up on there. Someone's always going to be there to talk to you about something. And yeah, man, just great people over at Get Lowered. Great East Coast company. So thank you for making this possible. Thank you, Legend Suspension. But for the Legend suspension, right, that I'm currently running, I'm just going to do like an initial thoughts video. So I'm just going to tell you the things that I'm initially noticing, tell you whether or not I think you should invest in this or buy a suspension system like this. And then maybe when I've like put a little bit more miles, like when I do my Sturgis trip or, something of that caliber, I'll give a follow-up video saying like, hey, here's how I feel about now after putting a bunch of miles on it. So what I'm rocking on this bike right now is the 13-inch Revo-A Legend suspension. And of course, just the front Legend suspension. The back is adjustable, which is something that I really wanted. You guys know my lady does ride with me quite a bit. And, it would be nice to have the option to quickly adjust suspension when she wants to ride with me without having to use a tool or something. So it's really nice to just have it be hand adjustable. So I did go with the 13-inch. That was the recommendation from Peter Gunz, and like always, he's steered me in the correct direction in terms of getting the parts that I need to make this bike the best it can be. And the 13-inch for me is absolutely perfect. The stock FXDL suspension is 12.5, so this brings the bike up about a ½ inch. So you get like a little bit more of a gap than you would get with the stock, right? But also it's just not so much that you have that giant gap that you're gonna get if you go with like 14 inches or 14.5. And like, I get it. I know that like that's a styling point for a lot of people, and a lot of people are like just trying to get that like giant gap because they think it looks cool, and I'm sure it also has a purpose too, right? But me personally, for a couple reasons, like A, like, don't get me wrong, I do like a good amount of bikes that have that gap setup, but I'm just not like a big fan of it myself. I kind of like the more like classic look without just like a giant raised gap in between. And then like also just like practicality. Like I'm 5'6". I don't need the bike to be raised to the point where I'm not flat-footed. So with 13 inches, I'm still easily flat-footed, like really comfortable maneuvering the bike at low speeds if I need to. But the thing to say about that is I have sat on a bike with 14-inch Legend suspension before, and when you sit down, you kind of sink into it a little bit, so it's not actually as high as it is when you see it without sitting. So I definitely could have made it work for sure, But I think like at the end of the day, it just was a looks thing for me, and I just didn't want to have the look of like a giant gap, you know? I've heard a lot of different things about like upgrading suspension and stuff like that before I did it, you know. Like I heard that like, oh, you know, you should only be doing that if you're a stunt rider, or you should only be doing that if you're like really like doing like canyon diving in California or whatever, like, or if you're like going to the track and like leaning the bike over 90 degrees. Like those are things I had heard. And you know, before I did it, I rocked the stock FXDLS suspension for quite a while, and I always thought it was pretty good because like I would ride other Dynas with like stock suspension and be like, man, their suspension is terrible. Like mine is like way better compared to that. So I was always like riding around being like, yeah, my suspension isn't too bad. Like the stock FXDLS is the Harley Davidson premium suspension, right? Can't be that bad. So yeah, you know, I went about 3 years riding with that suspension. And then, you know, I sat on my buddy Jay's bike after he had switched to Legends. I sat on my buddy Romano's bike. And then finally, I sat on one of Peter Gunn's bikes that had it. And I was just like, dude, I need to pull the trigger on this. So like I said in the beginning, the good folks over at Get Lowered, especially Rob, were down to support me on this new adventure of changing the suspension. So I said, all right, let's do it. So what I will say off the bat is after doing this, I'm going to have a hard time riding another bike that doesn't have Legend suspension or something that's like equivalent in quality. Because, dude, from the second I sat on this bike when I changed it till now, I'm just like blown away. I'm completely blown away. It's like you sit on your bike and it's like you're sitting on a couch. Like you sink into it, and I feel like I'm just like more one with the bike at this point. You know, we always talk about as Dyna riders like being more in the bike rather than on top of it, like you might feel like on something like a Sportster or whatever. This creates that feeling even more, where I like 100% feel like I'm in the bike. I feel like I have so much more control. Like, it's crazy, man. Like, there would be certain maneuvers and, like, swerves and curves where I would feel like I would kind of, just like that, where I would feel like I would kind of have to, like, throw my body into it. But after throwing the Legends on, like maneuvers like that is literally like a flick of the wrist. Like, it's so easy to just, like, you know, throw this bike around a little bit more with the upgraded suspension. When I am like going into high-speed turns, it's so much more comfortable to lean the bike over. Like, I feel way more confident doing it, and it's like hard to explain why that is, but it's just like, I don't know, it just feels so much better going into turns after upgrading the front and back suspension. And like the biggest thing for me is, you guys know, like a lot of the riding I do is in environments like this. It's in Brooklyn, it's in New York City, it's in an urban environment. Like, that's where I learned to ride. That's what's normal for me, right? So you know the reality. Like, if you watch my videos, if you watch any New York City motovloggers videos, the roads here are really bad. Like, they're really bad. And it's not just here, it's Long Island, like it's anywhere probably of like, I don't know, a good like 20 or 30 mile radius outside of New York City. You know, most riders in the city, it's just like second thought that like, oh, pothole, dodge it, pothole, dodge it. Like, you don't even think about it after a while. But the crazy thing about after upgrading to Legends is like potholes that I used to hit and be like, oh damn, dude, like really should have avoided that one or whatever, I'm just like gliding right over. Like, this bike could take, you know, a pretty significant pothole now easily without bottoming out, and easily without really phasing me at all, you know? Whereas before, like, if I hit like a big enough pothole, like it's almost kind of disorienting. Like, I'm either bottoming out the bike or whatever, or I'm like, oh damn, like you feel it, right? It's like disorienting. But after upgrading to the Legends, it's like, if I hit a pothole, it's really not a big deal. You know, don't get me wrong, like I'll feel it a little bit, but maybe like I'd say not even half as much as I'd feel it with the stock suspension. yeah, man, it's just like potholes. It just becomes like one less thing that you have to worry about. You know what it's like. You see my videos. Like, we're just pretty much out here trying not to die. So one less thing that we don't have to worry about is pretty nice, right? And I'm not saying like I'm intentionally hitting potholes or anything, but what I am saying is, like, when I do hit one, if I happen to like miss it or whatever, it's really not a big deal, you know? With reason. I'm not saying like go ride your bike into like a gaping hole somewhere. But that's it. Like, the roads are rough, and the suspension really lets you handle it, right? It was Rolling Thunder that did the installation. They did an excellent job, as always. You know, I probably could have done the rear by myself, right? But the bike was already in there for the chain conversion. It was already going to be on a lift, and they were going to have to do the front, which that's a little bit beyond my expertise. They took care of it. They did an excellent job. And Gerard, actually, it's great, man. He actually test rode it on the worst road in Hempstead. Sorry, guys, got to get through here. I got suspension to be talking about. Yeah, so he test rode it through this like infamously bad road, and he said like he did not even come close to bottoming out. So for mine, I actually left it dialed in on 3, which is like the halfway mark, because that's what he had it on, and like he definitely has a couple pounds on me. So my reasoning was like, if he was able to do that without bottoming out, then, you know, there's probably no way I'm going to be bottoming out either. So it's nice, man. So like the way I have it set up, like when I sit on the bike, I probably sink maybe an inch or an inch and a half into it. That's why I'm saying it has that like nice couch feel. You like feel like you're in the bike. So listen, guys, that's my, see what I mean? So listen, guys, that's my first impression. I can't recommend it enough. And like, listen, even if where you're riding is like straightaways and the roads are beautiful and everything is happy and you never have any potholes or whatever, I still highly recommend this suspension. Like, it's gonna make it literally feels like you're riding on a cloud. It's gonna make the experience so much better for you. So like, the other thing I could say, and I usually say this in my videos, is like, if you're still kind of wondering about it yourself, then kind of do what I did. Either borrow a friend's bike that has it, or find where Legends is. They do like demos on this stuff. I know they have demo days where you could try out a bunch of bikes and see how you like it, and then make an informed decision from there. But like, I'm sold on it, man. Like, I think any bike after this is 100% going to be set up with the same system. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time like getting on my other Dyna now that we're building that has stock suspension and riding that thing after this, you know, because I feel really spoiled now. But yeah, I hope you know, this initial thoughts video is helpful if you're thinking about Legends. And yeah, as always, man, if you guys are if you're still watching the video at this point, go ahead and leave me that little wrench icon. Let me see if you're still watching. Leave me some wrenches if you're watching this. But as always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Shout out to Get Lowered, Legend Suspension, and of course Rolling Thunder Cycles. Check them all out. And yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. So BK Low is out.